Here we are with another best wildcard team video ahead of Gameweek 23. We actually showed you in the reaction stream a kind of rough draft, a quick one of the best wildcard team, but now there's going to be a few alterations and also more in-depth analysis on each of these picks. And let me know what you think of each of these down in the comment section below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and subscribe for new. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, so thank you very much to everyone who has been supporting the channel. As always, we start off with the goalkeepers, and I think Jose Sarr and Ramsdale have been the two best goalkeepers in the Premier League this season, and the same goes for FPL. Now, there are some arguments to maybe not go for Ramsdale because he has a few blanks in the next few game weeks. Even the Burnley game, as I talked about in my team selection video, that could potentially be, postponed as well with all the problems that Burnley have, and even Arsenal actually. So that game isn't really that secure. That would be 3 blanks in the next few game weeks, which isn't ideal at all. But Jose Sarr should be able to cover for that. If you're not too sure about any of these picks, especially with a few defensive double-ups we have, maybe consider going for David De Gea or Robert Sanchez as well. I think those 4 are the best goalkeepers in the game. Despite the fact that United probably have the worst defence of those 4 teams I mentioned, De Gea is very good with bonus points and saves, so he can always get you something even if United concede and let you down. So I think Jose Sarr and Ramsdale are the 2 best ones. I'm kind of looking long term with this wild card, and Jose Sarr should be able to cover for those blanks that Ramsdale has. And that concludes the goalkeepers. If you have any other suggestions, as I said before, please let me know. And now we're going to go on to the defenders. Trent and Cancelo are always mainstays in these teams, so I don't think they need too much explanation. They play in the 2 best defensive teams in the league, and they also have so much attacking potential with the bonus points. I mean, look at last week, for example, in Game Week 22, they've basically outscored most, if not all, defenders who have a double game week or not, because they're that good. So I would definitely go for Trent and Cancelo on any team, whether you're wildcarding or making free transfers. I wouldn't go without them. Now, the rest is open to interpretation because there's so many different options that you can opt for. Now, we've got Conor Coady in there, but you've already got Jose Sarr. So that's where I'm talking about maybe you could go for another goalkeeper like Robert Sanchez or David De Gea instead. That's completely up to you. Or instead of Coady, you could actually go for an Aston Villa defender. They could have a double in 23. They've got some great fixtures, but are Aston Villa as good defensively as Wolves? They're not, but they can still do pretty decent over the next 5 or 10 game weeks. So that's up to you what you do in terms of a Wolves double up, or do you go for another defender or another goalkeeper? Now there's another defensive double up here with Manchester City. In my transfer tips video, I talked about Laporte and Lowton, and I think Laporte is actually one of the best defenders right now. He's an ideal Reece James replacement. He's been so consistent really over the last 5 or 10 game weeks, and he's been very nailed this season compared to the last campaign. So Laporte could actually be better than Ruben Dias, Kyle Walker and all the other popular Man City assets in the back line. I think if you are looking for any defensive double up, the main one I'd target is João Cancelo and Laporte for Manchester City. They've kept 13 clean sheets this season, which is by far the most of any team, 2 more than Liverpool and 4 more than Chelsea and Arsenal, who are tied in 3rd place. Now the final spot in this team is a bit of a weird one because I was talking about potentially skipping Lowton in my transfer tips video, and I still think that you don't have to go for him, but there is a reason why we have him, and it's because we need enough money to have a placeholder for Mohamed Salah. So we need that money.
I need that money.
Quoting Spider-Man there. So we have Lowton as the 5th defender. You could go for Aït-Nouri instead and cover Wolves that way, but I also raise concerns about Aït-Nouri. What will happen when Marçal is back? Because when Saiss also returns from the African Cup of Nations, he's going to slot into the back 3 with Kilman and Coady. That means it's a straight shootout between Marçal and Aït-Nouri for that left wing back spot. But there's different options for a cheap price. Lowton has 5 games in hand. I'm not a big fan of the fixtures in general, even those that are yet to be rescheduled, except for Watford maybe at home. But Burnley have been so poor defensively this season anyway, with only 3 clean sheets in 17 games. They do have quite a few games in hand, but they're not really the same Burnley from the past. If you want a cheap 5th defender who has a lot of games in hand, then go for Lowton, but I don't think he's necessarily a must-have. And if I could, I would go for Reguilón instead of Lowton. But I will be talking now with the midfielders, and the reason why we have Lowton and such a cheap defender is going to be clear. Just because Bruno hauled and got 14 points in Game Week 22 in the first game anyway, that doesn't mean I think Bruno is suddenly a must-have. The reason why I have Bruno Fernandes is because we have a triple up in Man City already with Cancelo, Laporte and Foden, so we can't get Kevin De Bruyne or Sterling, who I'd probably prefer over Bruno Fernandes. And ultimately, Bruno Fernandes is the placeholder for Mohamed Salah when he returns in Game Week 24 or 25, and that's why we have Lowton instead of someone like Reguilon, who would be my preference. And we've got Diego Jota, Foden and Bowen. They are all in my actual team, so I'm very happy to keep them. Now, you could go for De Bruyne instead of Foden and maybe downgrade someone else like Raphinha, and you'd have enough money to have Salah and De Bruyne and a very good midfield, just one bench fodder, and that's fine. I still would probably prioritise depth, but you don't have to. You might think differently. So for any of these players you see, whether it's up front, in midfield or in defence, you could downgrade one of them, get a lot of cash in the bank and be able to have two premiums like De Bruyne or Bruno Fernandes alongside Mohamed Salah. If Heung-min Son was fit, then he would definitely be in this team, but he isn't right now. And when he does come back around February, Foden could actually be the one to make way despite his very good fixtures. Once again, let me know what you think. I think Jarrod Bowen is a no-brainer. Diego Jota, a lot of people are raising questions about him, but I still think he's worth keeping, and I would double up on Liverpool's attack when Mohamed Salah returns rather than going from Jota to Salah, but once again, that's completely down to you. I talked about Raphinha in my team selection video as well. Now, if Leeds get a double game week in 23, that doesn't necessarily mean that Raphinha will play both games, because he's going off to Brazil on the 27th of January, and on the 1st of February, they have some World Cup qualifiers against Ecuador and Paraguay. So that's something to keep an eye on. So if Leeds have a double game week, Raphinha might not play the second game, but he's got great fixtures long term up until game week 32. So I still think Raphinha is worth a purchase. Once again, if you want to go for two premiums instead, downgrade one of these players, especially in midfield or attack, and you can get the money you need to get the team that you ultimately want, because that's the most important thing. And you might actually want to target some differentials that can do very well. Maybe Coutinho, for example, or Calvert-Lewin up front. But speaking of forwards, let's get straight into those as well. I'm unsure about one spot in my team, and that's between Calvert-Lewin and Mikel Antonio. The thing with Antonio is he isn't really getting into the positions we want as an FPL asset, but he's still getting some points, whether it's assists or goals. He's not reaching the same heights as the first 3 games of this season where he was absolutely unplayable, but he is still a good asset. Calvert-Lewin has a new manager here with Duncan Ferguson. He could do very well with those fixtures and a potential double in Game Week 24. So you could actually persist and even bring him in if you haven't got him already. But it is very risky. Everton are a much worse team than West Ham. But at the same time, you already have Jarrod Bowen, and he is the best asset by far for the Hammers. But it's up to you. And let me know once again in the comment section, would you go for Calvert-Lewin or Mikel Antonio? For the other two forwards, we have Emmanuel Dennis, and I still think he's the best option. I know Watford are very poor. Dennis is in relatively poor form himself, but I think he will come good, and he is one of the highest scoring players this season, despite his absolutely amazing price. He's so cheap, and I still think with those potential doubles, like with Burnley coming up at some point, he could do very well. But if I'm being honest, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Watford, but Dennis has been their best player, and I would still go for him. You're looking at the others around a similar price. Maybe Edouard could be one to consider, but Dennis for me is the pick of the bunch. Then we have Ollie Watkins. He could have a double in Game Week 23, and there's some pretty good fixtures long term and plenty of decent doubles. So if you're comparing Aston Villa's unscheduled fixtures to Burnley, for example, they're much better. Aston Villa are also a good team. Watkins has been very good under Steven Gerrard, so there's quite a lot of positives here. And yeah, I think I'd go for something like this. I'd avoid the premium strikers. If anything, I would rather have 2 premium midfielders right now, especially when Son comes back, and that would be my ideal wildcard team. Once COVID cases are not a problem anymore and there aren't any more postponements, then I think it is possible to downgrade 1, if not possibly 2 players in this team to bench fodder options like Jacob Ramsey in midfield, and up front you could even just go for anyone really around 4.5 million and focus on your starting 11. But until then, I think we should go for squad depth. With this team, I have 1.2 million left in the bank, and my squad value overall is 104.9 million. So this squad costs 103.7 million, and it also gives you the means to get Mohamed Salah back in, who's now 12.7 million, easily for Bruno Fernandes. So that's why we've gone for Lowton, even though I have reservations about him, as discussed in my transfer tips video. But that's the best wildcard team in my opinion. There's a few variables which I discussed for the goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards. There's no right or wrong way of playing FPL, but in my opinion this is a very solid draft, and this would be very beneficial for anyone looking to boost up the ranks. And you can always, with the double Game Week news we get of Game Week 23 or any others like Game Week 24, that could also influence and maybe alter some of these options, and you can also target those double Game Weeks, but they don't always pay off. And yeah, we've got plenty of evidence of that already in Game Week 22 so far. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. As I said at the beginning of this video, we're almost at 10,000 subscribers, so thank you very much to everyone who's been supporting the channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Dylan_RCM. We're very close to getting 1,000 followers on Instagram and also on Twitter, so any follows are greatly appreciated. You can also join the Discord server and also the league. The links are in the description below. I think we have hundreds, if not thousands, of members in the league, so thank you very much to everyone who's been joining across the entire season. And also in Discord, we've hit 100 members in the chat, so thank you very much to everyone who's been tuning in. Good luck with Game Week 22 and Game Week 23, and also if you do play your wildcard, good luck. It's very important. In my opinion, it is by far the most important chip, and let's enjoy the football, and I'll see you next time.